another Lilliepie video. Just posted the link in the chat over there for you guys on YouTube. It'll be down in the description below. You've watched Lilliepie plenty of times before. Make sure you like and subscribe. They're a good content creator that puts out quality stuff. I say this at the beginning of every Lilliepie video. Lilliepie is a very interesting content creator for me because she has very like night and day takes when it comes to the game. Some things she says are like very like smart and very good for the health of the game. And other times she's like, hey, you know, I wish killers just respawn without a weapon. She never said that, but you know, like things like that where it's just like, I hope killers just get nothing. And it's like, that would be catastrophic, you know? So like watching their videos is always super entertaining because of just that interesting dichotomy between their takes. This one is about the future of Dead by Daylight. The future of Dead by Daylight is ... We left it a mystery. You have to watch the video to find out, which, you know, we will watch and find out then.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. The past few weeks for DBD have been all over the place, and it's left a lot of us scratching our heads. There have been a couple of really big issues right now, leaving concern for the direction of DBD. People have been very critical of the past two chapters. There's the ongoing...
Yeah, the last few chapters are not a disaster, but they certainly are boring. There's not a whole lot of new perks that are really fun or worth running. Obviously, the Knight and Dull Merchant are fairly weak killers that only function if you hold a 3-gen very aggressively, which is a very boring play style, and then they become extremely obnoxious. It's just been a boring 6 months. It's been a boring 6 months, and that's a long time to have your player base be bored. Long time to have your player base be bored.
DDoSing issue, the massive backlash from the most recent PTB and dev notes, but also whether or not the game is actually dying. So let's talk about some of those issues, starting with chapters.
I will say this right away. Is that the DBD is dying videos have been being made for like the past like 3 or 4 years. There will always be DBD is dying videos. The thing is that DBD, the more accurate way to describe it, is that DBD has been on a decline since Resident Evil's first chapter. Ever since DBD's initial chapter, yo, Brian is rating me. Yo, Brian, hello, friend. Thank you so much for the raid, Ernie. I really appreciate that. Oh, God, I did not finish that. Hold on. Yeah. But anyways, like I said, we are watching Lilliepie's The Future of DBD is ... video. So if you want to partake, please go up on the YouTube. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and roll it. Thank you for the raid again, friend. Appreciate it.
Forge in the Fog was yet another anti-loop killer with an underwhelming design to most, who also upon release had a bugged power in many ways, and the very map that was released with it was overwhelming in terms of balance.
Do you remember that Borgo used to spawn with all possible pallet spawns? You remember that? When Borgo first came out, it was like for the first like week or two, it spawned every single possible pallet. And even now that it's fixed, it still spawns most of those pallets. Sometimes I call it outdoor meatpacking plant because literally Borgo still spawns like most of the pallets that are available for it to spawn. It's very rare that I'll go to a loop on Borgo where a pallet could possibly spawn and it's not there. Like it's a very pallet dense map to this day. It's still a very pallet dense map.
And visuals. The map was very saturated, making it hard on the eyes and spawn.
Dude, and they fixed it. Or quote unquote fixed it. They adjusted it. They adjusted the deep red and made it better, and you still can't see anything on that map. I hate saying this because, like, you know, it's kind of like beating a dead horse. It's like, yeah, you know, DBD behavior incompetent, teehee, you know, like everybody says that, and it gets kind of old after a while. But like, literally, how do you look at all of your aura, all your aura reading, all your tracking when it comes to scratch marks or like, you know, like bloodstains on the ground, which are all red, and then your brain goes, you know, it'd be great. We should make a map that's completely deep red. That way, you can't see any of your tracking abilities. That's great. That's not even just for killer either. You know how many times somebody will be hooked across the map on Borgo while I'm playing Survivor, and I have to like squint to see where they are? I'm like, is that like a charred piece of wood, or is that my friend? You know, like it's bad. It's still bad. Like, it's just, why? Why would you do that? I don't understand. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, literally. Like, that's what a lot of people have to do, Brian. They literally have to, they go into their, they do one of these numbers where they're like, okay, okay, so we're on a Borgos, and then they open up their reshade, they go down, and they have like a setting, a preset up here that they just, like, you know, put in, and then they're like, okay, here's my Borgo preset. They have literally, like, have to have reshade presets. So you can actually play the game. Why do people have to use, literally have to use reshades, like reshade presets in order to play a map in the game? Like, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. That should never be a thing. Like, literally never be a thing. Like the hex that gives you blindness. Yeah, it's just free blindness. There you go. Do it that way.
So many strong tiles and palettes together, and that issue still pretty much exists. Personally, as killer and survivor, I find it extremely difficult to navigate, but I also feel like there's way too many safe loops on that map as well.
Oh yeah.
And then about 3 months later, Tools of Torment was released and followed a pattern of another anti-loop killer with a seemingly weak design in other areas aside from mainly
That's why I hate these two. It's not because they're actually bad design killers. Like on Night, I love the pallet chewer build, where you run double Carnifex and you just like delete pallets and walk through them. He can be fun. Skull Merchant, I actually like a thorough amount. I like an M1 killer that just has a lot of info, because I actually like M1 killers a fair bit, even though they're really weak. So having just an M1 killer that just has a lot of info, so I can run more fun chase perks because I don't have to rely on info as much. It's a good idea. That is a good base concept, and I do like playing her. But in terms of consistency, in terms of getting consistent results, the only way Knight and Dole Merchant stay consistent is by playing the 3-gen strat. And the 3-gen strat is one of the most boring, asinine, awful things that you can do in this game. Now, I get sometimes that, like, you know, sometimes survivors put themselves in a 3-gen situation, right? Like, that's not what I'm talking about. We're not talking about that right now, because obviously you should punish people if they 3-gen themselves, because that's dumb. We're talking about picking 3 gens at the beginning of the map and just using a bunch of slowdown to hold that area with their base kits until the end of the game, and then the match draws out for 20, 30, 40 minutes. Remember, we had a match that was 32 minutes, 32 and something odd minutes with a Dole Merchant. Like, matches at DBD are usually around 10 minutes. And there's no reason I should be in a match that's 3 times the normal length just because you want to win so badly. That's boring. I would be earning more blood points if I had just, like, DC'd out of your match and kept going. It's like you're being held hostage. It's ridiculous. Night bring in Haddonfield 3-gen. Yeah, it's DC. Yeah, I do. I literally DC. Like, literally, I'm not even joking. If I see a Dole Merchant and I walk into, like, an area of the map and I see 3 gens with 3 drones over them, I just DC. It's the only character in the game I do that. I play Hag games. I hate Hag. Play against Nemesis, who I hate facing. I will play out Nurse games. I will play out Blight games. I will play out Spirit games. The only time I actually will DC on the instant of seeing someone is if I go in, I see Skull Merchant, and I see 3 little drones over a 3-gen. I quit right away. Because I am not about to stay here for 30 minutes just so you can get your W. I will get more blood points by getting out of this match and into another one than staying in this 30-minute match with you. Absolutely stupid. Absolutely dumb. Really like Skull Merchant. It's helping me learn to use her with info perks. Discover the fact there's no scratch marks. Color like neutral. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, that's the problem. That's what's so tragic about her. Is she is a fun character. She's an M1 killer that has a lot of info. So you can actually run more chase perks and then play her kind of like a very, very well-rounded jack of all trades, master of none kind of character. But instead, all they want to do is throw 3 gens up over a 3-gen and make the match 30 minutes long. So boring. So awful.
The Skull Merchant's design was also heavily criticized by the community due to over-sexualization, which personally...
Even if you play it out, have ones like 4K, play it out even. Find the other one. Yep. 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 Even if you play it out, it's like... It still feels like a lost cause. It still feels like a lost cause. It's so awful.
I mean, I didn't, and I still don't understand.
Yeah, I don't understand this at all. I look at this. I bought this skin. I bought this skin on release. Because, like, this should have been her default. I don't like her bedazzled mask. I think it looks goofy. This looks sick. This looks like she's straight out of, like, a cyberpunk game. She looks awesome in this. And people are like, oh my god, it's a thirst trap. I'm like, this looks sick. This looks cool. This is awesome. And then this is not a set. And that arm blade, the mantis blade, has custom animations. Like, I feel like this is the most value I've gotten out of buying a set in a while. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, this is what I feel.
He's just standing there.
Menacingly. Hey, Taser Race. Good to see you, friend. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I feel like this should have been her default. I love this thing. I love this thing. First, yeah, clearly your first checks notes. Warehouse industry. You did it. Congratulations.
But also poor originality with her Mori, with it being compared to Freddy's.
It was.
Not the best perks on either side, and it was also review bombed on Steam many times, and people opted to protest by buying the chapter characters with shards instead. Some even called the chapter a failed Predator clone. And again,
it kind of is, though. Like, to this day, like, which is, like, not something they've not done before, because clearly Trapper's supposed to be Jason. Clearly, you know, Hillbilly was supposed to be Bubba, and then we ended up getting Bubba, which is kind of funny. But, like, it's not the first time that they've done that. It's like I said when all this hullabaloo was happening, DBD has almost every popular horror IP in their game, and they're still working on it. So it's just kind of weird that they would go back to, like, ripping off a popular IP for a character chapter when they're this deep. Like, I get when they were first starting. Like, obviously they don't have the money or pull to get a popular IP. But, like, this deep into the game's, like, history and with all the success the game has had, it feels dated. That's what I'm looking for. It feels really dated. If you're just kind of like, you know, change my homework so it doesn't look the same. Like, this late in the game. It just feels weird. It feels dated.
I can understand not being a fan of either chapter. I was personally not a fan of Forged in the Fog nor Tools of Torment, but I don't feel like it was as bad as some people say.
Oh yeah,
I think
it was just boring. It wasn't like awful. It's just that, like, we know we got subpar content and it feels bad. It just feels bad. Like, it's not like, you know, it's not like I went to McDonald's and I ordered a cheeseburger and it was like poisoned, or like, you know, I found a bunch of hair under the bun or anything. Like, it just kind of tasted bad. Like, maybe it was a little burn around the edges. Maybe the food had been sitting in the heat vent for a little too long. It kind of just tasted bad. It's not like I had to, like, go complain, you know, because, like, oh, well, I actually, this food made me sick, or like, hey, I found a bunch of hair in my food, you know. Like, it wasn't an issue. It just sucked. It was just boring. It was just, ugh.
And a lot better, obviously, but I do genuinely believe we are a little bit spoiled by having content every 3 months, and oftentimes whenever we get like a hint of whatever might be released, sometimes we kind of have this expectation in our minds which doesn't necessarily pan out, but it's just kind of, it is what it is. I just think that it's not as bad as people make it out to be. But in terms of actual bad chapters, just look at the twins upon release. Binding of Kin.
If you lived through the Twins chapter, you are entitled to financial compensation. If you lived through the Twins chapter, if you played DBD in the time that the Twins chapter came out, and you are still here, God bless you. You have suffered immensely, and I'm glad you're still here with us. The game literally, like, broke. Almost every killer had a bug. The Twins didn't function. Like, literally, there were game-breaking bugs that would prevent you from completing the game. Like you would pounce as Victor and you get stuck in the ground, and you would just have to DC. There was no other option to get it out of the ground. Sometimes you would switch, not be able to switch back. Like I said, half the killer powers broke. Like, that was a dark time. That was a dark time. Like, that was probably, like, in my time playing, I've only played the game for it'll be 3 years. No, it's about 3 years. About 3 years since I played the game. Pyramid Head PTB is when I started. This was the buggiest thing I've ever seen. Like, literally most of the game was broken. Like, literally most of the game was broken. This was a disaster. This was straight up a disaster. Straight up a disaster.
Had dozens of bugs that were documented upon release, such as Victor being able to hit through lockers, Victor flying directly out of Charlotte's boob socket, animations were desynced for Victor in the lobby, Victor not being able to be crushed in various places.
Do you remember when Victor would fly away? Do you guys remember when Victor would fly away? Like sometimes when you'd switch characters, like he was supposed to come back in your chest, but like the character would like return to you in the animation they were when they were on the survivor's back, and he would just start floating into the distance until he eventually vanished. Because that was the funniest thing. It was depressing because it was such a buggy awful, but that I gotta admit that was at least funny to watch Victor just kind of like zoom into the distance like he's going to the like hyper speed in Star Wars, like he's just out of here. That was funny at least.
Leading to basically hook camping with him, Victor completely eating dead hard, and most of the perks didn't even work.
Yep.
With the very first Resident Evil chapter, upon release, many were disappointed with the models of the survivors, Nemesis's power, and
you remember Claire looking like a zombie and Grandma Jill? you remember Grandma Jill and Zombie Claire? Those were disgusting. Also, the performance for this chapter on console was abysmal. Ever since they patched, ever since that patch came through, like console performed worse for months. This wasn't just like, okay, we can fix this in a couple weeks. Like console gamers like could barely play this game for months because of performance issues after this patch went through. Holy moly. And I think that's a big part because this was their biggest chapter. This is where they hit their 105,000 peak. I think that's a big reason why a lot of those players didn't stick around, because the game didn't freaking work for console.
The zombies roam the map, the AI not being the greatest, making it so that you actually lose a health save from them. Sometimes they're also silent as well, meaning you can just get smacked.
They're still like that. They're still silent around corners for some reason.
Applying the vaccine, and RPD had to be disabled mere hours later due to constant crashes. It took.
Yeah, you imagine that, having a brand new map just not. I remember that, a brand new map just not be available. That's embarrassing. That's so embarrassing. Guys, look at our brand new map. Oh wait, it's bugged. You can't play it. That's so embarrassing. That's like a third of the content, because like, you know, the content is the killer, the survivors, and the new map, right? That's a third of the content just turned off. That's embarrassing. That's so embarrassing. Dead hard, my game would almost crash. There's no reason for that. There's no reason you should dead hard your game could almost crash. That's ridiculous.
It took almost a month for the chapter to be stable.
It was more than that.
This is also last second mention, but Darkness Among Us, featuring the Legion and Jeff, also had very poor reception.
Yeah, I wasn't around for that.
Jeff was considered a very mundane survivor, but also Legion.
You take that the back. You take that back. You take that back. Fucking about Jeffrey? I'm sorry, we're not all blessed to have 50 million cosmetics like Claudette, okay? Come from my man. Rose, your takes are unbiased. I can't listen to you.
Was basically uncounterable alone, causing plenty of frustration, which, funnily enough, exists in the latest PTB.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Oh my god! They look like sprites. Huh?
Oh, she's realizing.
And now moving on to the DDoS issues, which are a lot. With the recent DDoS issues, content creators and DVD players alike have been wary to play, but apparently the security flaw has been around for many years, according to some.
Oh yeah.
Just last
year.
Oh
yeah. Yeah, you could get DDoS. Like the first time it got popular was around the artist chapter. The artist chapter is the first time it got popular. It's been around for a long time, and they've never fixed it.
But it seemed to fade away until now. The DDoS issue apparently stems from Steam, but the security issue can be spread to other platforms so long as a Steam player is in the lobby. Therefore, all players are at risk, essentially. Personally, I have been hit twice. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, when she's eating the cheeseburger and she gets DDoSed.
Okay, so.
Right in the middle of cheeseburger ramen. Goodbye.
And although we don't know when the fix for this will be, Behavior has been open about their investigation into these issues. But
yeah, and they were like, yeah, we don't know. Yeah, we found this thing that kind of looked like it, but we already fixed that. So I have no idea what's happening. Good luck. Like, That's a little scary. That's a little dark to hear. Hey guys, how's that DDoS and investigation going? They're like, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? We don't know. Oh, okay. Would it have been better if you just said nothing? There's no DDoS in Bong Sing Se. There is no DDoS in Bong Sing Se.
Meantime, players are left with the situation in their own hands to change their IPs, use a VPN, anon mode, hide usernames,
VPN
and leave nothing
matter.
identifiable, and possibly use another platform temporarily, such as Epic. They've issued a statement since then where apparently they found no issues, but a lot of us find that hard to believe, considering when many of us play other games or play offline.
Yeah, it doesn't happen on other games. It doesn't happen on other games. What? So it's just a big old coincidence. Big old coincidence, huh?
Void. I find the news very disappointing, but I can only hope that the issue is identified and secured. Until then, I advise everyone to follow the precautions I previously listed. With the PTB recently being released this past Tuesday, it was heavily criticized and poorly received.
Yeah.
It really left a lot of people speechless as the quality of life changes were great, but changes to the core game such as healing were absolutely destroyed.
Which they thankfully
and
rolled
already
back.
existing issues in the core game such as the rise of camping, tunneling, and slugging were left completely unaddressed. Again. I shared my thoughts on Twitter for both sides, but I'll quickly do a rundown right now on the most important parts. For flashlights, I think removing the interactions wasn't the greatest choice. There's a lot of unique counterplay to certain killers, and flashlights were arguably one of the best ways to do so. I understand the feature may not be
I can get Wraith.
often,
I can
it
get
was-
Wraith because Wraith's a very middle of the pack killer. He's not that good. So like I get removing it from him, but like the others not so much. I don't really see it on Nurse that often. I know people are most upset about the Nurse thing, but I don't see people really burn Nurse that often. Which is interesting. Yeah, it doesn't make sense for a lot of it. When X said, gave me my Twitch comment, even told me that about the DDoS problems 2 years ago, and that they knew of it in late 2017. Why did they just? Are they just dumb? Like I said, it's like I said in that one video I made a while ago. It's just like either they're just really incompetent and really can't figure out how to fix it, or they just don't want to, and both of which are scary. Are very, very scary. Like the company's too stupid to protect us, or they just don't care. Both of which are very frightening things, no matter which one of those is true. That's not great.
unique. So stripping it makes things a little less spicy and a lot more boring. When it came to the killer tweaks, I just wanted to say, please leave Hillbilly alone.
Which they rolled back
Tweaking
that
over heat was
too.
nice, but the muscle memory of using double engravings is ruined, and you can't curve some loops anymore. I don't play Billy often myself, but I really did enjoy practicing him, and I've seen many beloved players frustrated. Billy players are already an endangered group as well. They're fun to play against, but after this...
Yeah, I've had that happen where it sucks me
I
into a
just don't see
breakable
many
wall.
people
It's
playing
frustrating.
Billy. I also would have liked if Freddy and Pyramid had received some love for their kit or add-ons. Freddy was nerfed into the ground quite some time ago, as well as his add-ons, and I think he should probably be compensated for that. It was pretty harsh.
It was so weird. They just took a bunch of add-ons that, like, on random killers were just like, hey, this is like 0.2% better. Like, it was just like, what? Where did that come from? Where did that even come from? Like, why? Like, it was so random. Yeah, like, that stuff like Alcring's just, like, still in the game and totally, like, intact compared to, like, you know, we gotta take away Billy's engravings, but, like, Alcring's okay. But, hey, at least eggs on Pyramid Head's gonna be slightly better. Like, it's just like, what? Just like, what do you mean? Just like, I just don't get it. It's just like, where did this come from? Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, Blight Spirit, it's okay, but like, yeah, Billy, we gotta take out Billy's add-ons. Like, how did we get to this point? Like what thought process brought us to be like, yeah, Purple Egg, let's make that like 0.2% better, but like, hey, yo, Billy engravings, that's gonna receive 3 separate nerfs that we have to walk back because the community hates us. Like, how does your brain get to this point? How does your mind get here? like, how do you unironically think this is a good idea and put it through? Like, do you just not hang out in your own communities? Like, you guys, is your community PR that bad that you really have no idea what we're thinking about the game at any given time? You just have no clue. Like it's just random. It feels like I pulled like my Meemaw, like my Nana aside, and I was like, hey, what would you change here? She's like, well, son, eggs are good for you. We should make that egg add-on better. I'm like, okay, gotcha. We'll buff the egg out. What else? Well, Nightmare on Elm Street. I remember seeing that with your father. Okay, we'll buff his block. Let's just buff the block. You know, like just completely random. Like, how did you reach this conclusion? I don't understand. I do not understand.
And with Pyramid Head, his add-ons have not always been the greatest. Typically range is the best, and that's about it. I would love to see something new, and this may be difficult for them because of licensing issues, but we'll have to see in the future. With perk updates, I was a little upset because Pain Res was definitely one of the healthier gen perks and it was earned. I think instead of gutting it like they did with Pop, just restore it to its original state, but make it so that score checks rotate upon use. That way RNG issues are solved where they typically spawn on one side of the map, too far apart, and they also can't be abused by camping.
Yep.
I think Circular Healing requiring a medkit with charges left is a bit much. I think it was annoying going against Circular Healing, but if this was the change to it, I would rather it just be altruistic healing and have 100% heal speed bonus while doing so.
They did do that. They did do that, by the way. They did do that, by the way. It is now 100% speed. I believe so. Here, let me check that. I'm pretty sure that's what they ended up doing. Like when they revert, because I'm assuming she made this before the dev update came out, the new dev update. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what they actually did. So they actually listened to her here. They did, yeah. I was pretty sure I was right in that, but I wanted to check to make sure. Thank you for cooperating.
And also, please give us an indicator on the killer HUD to let us know when we're in boon range. Sometimes with chase audio from the killer side, map sound effects, survivor sound effects, it's simply too loud to tell.
I don't think it'd be useful. Yeah, because like that's a lot of time to put down a boon. No, I'm saying that like boon circle healing was really strong. I'm not saying that like it didn't deserve to be looked at, but like putting down a totem. Booning a totem takes a really, really long time. So you're just going to do all that just to create an area where you guys heal quicker. And it's something that the killer can just walk over and like kick out of the way and snuff it. It's like, is the time investment really worth that? Is the time investment to put the boon down really worth it at that point? Because I don't think it is, personally. I don't think it's worth spending that. Like that's time you could spend on a gen. Game time is gen time. Match time is gen time. So you're spending all that time on a totem that can just be kicked out of the way, and all it does is make people heal faster in it. Like, there's gonna be niche moments where that's helpful. Like, you know, if, once again, Dull Merchant or Knight are holding a 3-gen, so you guys can keep taking hits, going out and healing there. But like, other than that, like, I feel like it's more of a time. It's more of a time sink to even waste putting it down if all it's gonna do is make your healing faster. Just bring other healing perks. There's plenty of good healing perks in the game that don't require you to be in a specific area or put down a totem for like 10 years. Yeah, or just, you know, everybody just starts bringing adrenaline and just, you know, heal that way.
Middle of a game, it is so distracting. I think Dead Hard was fine as is. I never really used Dead Hard myself personally outside of Sabo.
It was bad in certain circumstances.
I didn't have that big of an issue with it as it kind of took a certain level of skill. I think trying to play the perk out, you know, waiting the 2 to 9 seconds like people say, it is a little bit frustrating, but if people are good at it, people are good at it.
Well, the problem is like we talked about in the last video, the problem is like approach palette and now you lose. Or with certain killers like Huntress or even like Wesker, where like you just a lot of your hits come at the very, very last second and you just dead hard it and it's just like gone, right? So like specific killer interactions, it just made it was too strong, and at pallets it was just too strong.
Change if they realize that a certain user has dead hard, they can just tunnel them out to avoid it. That and people could probably switch to Swinburst.
What? See, this is what I'm talking about. Like I was with you there. Now I'm like, yeah, if you hate dead hard, just tunnel them. How does tunneling counter? What? I don't think these things are related. But I was just, just tunnel them. Just tunnel them. Just tunnel the whole team if they don't have it. What?
Which is much more damning for a chase in my opinion, but I guess we'll see how that pans out. Lastly is healing. 24 seconds is really bad. This
Well, they rolled that
cannot
back,
go
thankfully.
live. Requiring an item with 2 max heals per match, a perk, or relying on teammates when most of the player base is solo queue will be a guaranteed disaster.
Yeah, it would have
Certain
been.
medkits such as the emergency medkit and some add-ons were the issue.
I just want to hear what she has to say.
Personal healing speeds in those regards were the typical issues
I'm gonna
that
skip it on
people
YouTube,
had,
but I still want to
not
hear what she has
altruistic
to say.
healing. Frequently, I will heal under the hook nowadays because the killer is usually more likely to come back and tunnel, but this will make it impossible to relocate, start and finish the heal while evading the killer and not being
Because
interrupted.
regardless of if the changes didn't go through, they thought it was a good idea. They thought it was a good idea. Regardless of the fact that these changes are not going through, they thought this was good. They, for some reason, thought this was a good idea. And like, this whole section, she's going to talk about all the issues that this would have introduced to the game. Like, they thought this was good. Like, they were like, yeah, this is going to fix the game, it's going to make it healthier. When it was probably one of the most detrimental changes that could have possibly come to the game and would have been disastrous if it went through. Like 4 times dead, yep.
Sure. This also promotes camping, especially with Stabiffle, because if survivors fail in this scenario, let's say 1 dead, 1 hooked, 2 injured, each hook stage is 60 seconds, 48 seconds to locate each other, start the heal someplace safe, and then finish the heal, then make it back to the hook. That person will either go second or die on second.
Yep.
This is a very common occurrence during end games, especially. Most of the player base is solo queue, making it very difficult to coordinate. Stabiffle still hasn't been adjusted in accordance to 6.1.
It's so, this is just so weird. Like, I always say this all the time, like, it's so weird. They gave you, if you don't know, like, what she's talking about here, is they gave you 2 Stabiffle stacks in chapter 6.10, just base. You have 2 stacks of Stabiffle at all times now as killer. It's just in the background. It's not listed, but it's there. You have 2 stacks of Stabiffle permanently. So, like, you know, ergo, the obvious thing to do to save the best for last was obviously make the cap 6 instead of 8. But they didn't do that. And it just feels like the biggest, like, oversight I have ever seen. Like, it's just simple. Like, right? It's just like, okay, well, you have 2 to start with, so the cap should probably be lower, right? It just makes sense, and they never touched it. It's just weird to me. So Stabiffle just got, which was already probably the best non-slowdown perk in the game for killer, just got buffed. You just got 2 more stacks now. On the perk that was already the best non-slowdown perk in the game for killer. Like, it's just weird. It's like, why? Like, it would take you 2 seconds. It would take you 2 seconds. It would take you 2 seconds to just go, okay, now that's 6. But they won't do it, and I don't know why. Oh, it's just so weird.
Killer's 10% cooldown reduction on successful M1s, and players should not have to factor in perks to fix core game issues, such as camping. This also does not factor in Sloppy, the perk, or Mangled add-ons, which would make the healing 60 seconds.
That was the other thing.
guaranteed.
They were going to put in all these healing changes, and they did nothing to Mangled. Nothing. They were going to put through all these healing changes and not even adjust Mangled. Like, how did they think that was fine? Like, I'm so just bamboozled. Not the perk, but, like, my brain. Like, somebody took one of those, like, those wicks that used to mix batter, just stuck it in my head and spun it around. Like, yeah, we're just gonna, you know, nerf healing across the board and keep all the anti-healing perks the same. Yeah, because, yeah, it would have been a nightmare to play because it's not only Sloppy, but, like, almost every character in the game has a Mangled add-on. Even Nurse has a Mangled add-on. Almost every character in the game has a Mangled add-on. So everybody would be running that. Like, that would be nightmarish. Essentially, everybody would be able to run effectively what would amount to be, like, another slowdown as an add-on. So you could run triple quad slowdown and then a 5th one. Essentially, because Mangled it would be buffed through the roof. Mangled's already pretty good. Most people already consider Sloppy a slowdown. So just having Mangled as an add-on, you could just run 5 slowdown on most killers in the game. That's fine. That's not very strong. Like, I'm not laughing to be patronizing. Like, it's literally that silly. It's that silly. Like, how did they think that that was going to work? Oh my god. Like, I just don't... It's ridiculous.
Second stage or death. This is also not factoring forced penance, coulrophobia,
appreciate it.
dying light, and much more. Even in the scenario where only one person decided to heal, the survivor will have to force a trade, or the more detrimental outcome, a hook grab from the healthy state, which I don't think should exist
Hey, we
either
already
as
talked
a
about this.
killer, but if this were to happen, the killer would have no reason to leave. They could just drop them and then that's it. It would be a GG. These healing changes also force survivors in situations to prioritize healing when the killer decides to hit and run while playing gen defense, leading to some of the most long, drawn-out, boring games. This also affects recovery speed as well, giving a very easy option to do a slugging playstyle, which again is very long, drawn-out, boring.
I will always disagree with everybody on this. I think slugging's healthy. I think slugging is very healthy for the game. I think it gets frustrating when it's a 4K or not okay, and they leave you on the ground. They have no idea where the other guy is in the end game when there's 2 people left. That's why I wish there was kind of like a bleed out on the floor option or something like that. Like a give up, like you can give up on hook. You can just do that on the ground. But other than that, like slugging is just a healthy way to get your pressure back. I've never understood the hate for slugging. Like I get the, you know, like I said, searching around for somebody you don't even know where they're at in the end game and leave them on the floor forever. But like, other than that, like I feel like slugging is healthy for the game. Yeah, and slugging is often like situational, right? Like there's a lot of times you can slug and it's the wrong choice. Like you're actually foregoing hooks you should probably be getting, just to slug. Like that does take skill to perform correctly. There is bad slugging and there is good slugging. So, yeah, I don't think slugging is inherently bad like a lot of people like think it is. I just think it's like, I just wish there was like a I give up on the ground option for those people that want to leave you on the ground for like 3, 4, almost your entire bleed out timer, looking around for the last dude. You know.
And that is a very big issue at the moment. And let's say DBD did actually start losing a lot of players. The DBD player base.
I mean, they have. Like realistically, they have. You go to the Steam charts, they were at 105 peak, and now they're like, their concurrent player count's always in the 20 or 30,000s. Like they didn't retain any of their players from that big Resident Evil chapter. They may be better off than like 2016, 17 DBD, but like, they didn't really like retain any of their players. They really didn't. So like, and they've been losing players almost every month since. They have never had 2 months of consistent growth since the Resident Evil chapter, at least in terms of their PC player base. They have not had more than 2 months of consistent growth since the Resident Evil chapter, the first one. They have not had more than 2 months of consistent player growth. That's not good. That's very not good. Yeah, exactly. Like that's exactly what we're talking. That's you. I don't know. You just said it correctly. Like if you down somebody and then somebody else is right in front of you, like go hit them. They're right there. Especially if they're like the people hovering for a flashlight save or something. Like just go smack them. It is the objectively the right play to go after that person if everybody's grouped up, because grouping up a survivor is a bad play typically. In most situations, grouping up a survivor is typically a bad play. It's good for you. It's better for you guys to be split up. So if they're all grouped up, that is your punishment. That is your retort. That's your counterplay, or the punishment for them. The consequence. That's the word. The consequence for them playing badly and being grouped up is to slug them, and apply pressure to the whole team that's grouped up. But obviously, if you like you said, you're like just leaving somebody on the ground and going and looking around for people, like that's doing it poorly. And if you do that incorrect in like the middle of the match, you could potentially lose doing that. So it's not even like oh, it's just always a good idea. Like there's plenty of times when slugging's a bad idea. So, yeah.
Across many platforms. But
Stagnant's a good
according to
word for the
Steam
player
charts,
base. Yeah.
DBD is doing fine, and that's considering Steam is.
Is it though? Like look at this. It's like they can't keep more than 2 months of consistent growth. Like this is what I was referring to, without bringing it up. What do you mean DBD's doing fine? They had a 105,000 player peak, and then they can't keep more than 2 months of consistent growth? Like, that's not good. They lost half the players they brought in from the Resident Evil chapter? That's not good. That's not a good thing. The game isn't growing. It's just stagnating. I like that word, Ghost Rider. It's stagnating. The game isn't growing. It's not fine. It's stagnant. It's stale. This isn't good. Notice chapter, yep, Resident Evil Chapter 1. And they didn't retain those players.
Much smaller portion of the player base. Therefore, when we factor in all platforms, according to ActivePlayer.io, DBD averages a whopping number of over 9 million players monthly. So, of course, DBD is not in any immediate danger, thankfully. But when it comes to
but
things
it's
like
not
content
thriving either.
creation, this is where it gets a little tricky. Because within the past year, DBD
Just do
has
Lady
been
D,
on a
I'll fix it.
complete steady decline
Chapter 3.
when it comes to the hours watched, the hours broadcasted,
Yep.
the average amount of viewers, channel streaming, viewer ratio, max viewers, and the amount of broadcasters overall. And that's a little concerning, considering this is where a lot of DBD gets its traction from.
Yeah,
According to
DBD
Sully,
DBD is a very Twitch heavy game. Very stream heavy game. Very stream heavy game. Most people find out about DBD through like people streaming it. The stream community for this game is very heavy and very influential. I'm not exactly unbiased because, you know, here I am. But like, it was like that before I even started streaming myself too. So, yeah, the fact that it's not doing well in that regard, which is something that really did a lot to kind of help prop up the game as well, is very concerning.
Like the downward decline for a lot of these factors started about September 21. So this was about the time that Pinhead was released, but also when skill-based matchmaking was released, which a lot of people, again, heavily criticized.
If you look at, like, where DBD actually started, like, declining or stagnating, it's that September where they dropped this skill-based matchmaking years ago. If you look at that chart she brought up and you look at like where the game actually started declining, it's skill-based matchmaking. That's where they stopped having more than 2 months of consistent growth for any months. That's where it started.
Overall, I think DBD is nowhere near dying, but these issues do make things look bad for now. Behavior has taken many steps towards fixing the gap towards solo queue and Swift, implementing quality of life changes such as base kit BT and possibly Unbreakable for the future, adding new and diverse loops to previous maps, tweaking previous maps. They've been running player satisfaction surveys and community choices for rewards and more. But at the end of the day, it seems like Behavior wants DBD to be more streamlined for its massive audience. This means removing unique interactions, making gameplay more predictable, and simplifying objectives. This sadly also means the fun aspect can definitely be hurt in the process. And I don't think this is an issue that just started recently either. As I mentioned before, skill-based matchmaking in 6.1 greatly affected games for both sides.
Yep.
But ultimately, it also skewed escape rates for survivors from nearly even at 49% to just 39%, and possibly lower since then.
Yep.
I understand there are hundreds of perks, dozens
That's
of
why I
maps
make fun of people when they're like, I'm a killer main and I'm so oppressed and I never win any of my games. I'm like, the kill rate's like pretty high. The kill rate average is pretty high. 60, 70% at this point. It was 60 something percent when they first released the data, which was only like a month or two after the 6.1. It's definitely higher now. Like the average performance of killers across the board is above average. Because 50 is, 50 is even, right? So like the average play, the average of the killer player base is high when it comes to like, actually, killing the survivors. So that means if you're like losing all your matches or really, because it's just people exaggerating. I understand that. Or somebody says something, it's like, I understand that they're exaggerating and whining. But like, if we're talking like realistically, like you are actually losing all your games, you're playing below average. You're not playing good enough. You're not playing well enough. Because most of the players in the game, both high hours, low hours, middling hours, are at that higher kill rate, that 60, 70%. Most of the killers in the game are doing fine. So you are the outlier. You are the one that is sucking. Not them. Yeah, I agree, Ghost Rider. Like, I have days like that too, where I just like I will like never escape on Survivor. Like, even if my team gets a 3 out, I'm the one that's dead. Like, there'll be days that like I'll escape like once or twice out of like a 3-hour play session. Pretty interesting.
With RNG included, vast amounts of info, and a steady pipeline of new content every 3 months. But with the direction that DBD is going, I'm kind of unsure about their goals and thus unsure how I feel about it as a whole. This could of course be burnout speaking, but me and many other players that have thousands of hours, other fog whisperers, and notable content creators.
Yeah, that's how you
have a
should be
similar
playing.
boat of
Well,
feelings,
you should be playing Ghost Riding.
if not
you should be
the
playing
same,
altruistically.
which is again a little concerning. Obviously, I hope for nothing but the best, but let me know what you guys think down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.
Yeah, so here, hold on. I'm about to say I always end on this screen because like the static will do it. Yeah, like thankfully she made this video before the dev update came out, or the second one rather. So they roll back the healing changes and they roll back the hillbilly changes, which is nice, which does make me a little bit more excited to play once those changes come through. But yeah, it's like DBD is, like I said, DBD has been pretty stagnant. I like the, yeah, DBD's been pretty stagnant, pretty stale, for a while. And they've never had more than 2 consistent months of growth since skill-based matchmaking. So like, the game's kind of like in a lull right now, and has been for a really long time. Lily's takes are usually pretty, yeah, like, that's why I like watching her a lot. It's just like, there'll be weird stuff like this where she's like, hey, you hate Dead Hard? Just tunnel everybody. And it's like, what? Brother, what are you talking about? what do you mean just tunnel everybody to get around Dead Hard? What are you talking about? But like, most of it's pretty sensible stuff, which I do appreciate. And it's not coming from, because she's the reverse of me. Like, I was a killer main for most of my 4.2k hours and started playing 50-50 like fairly recently, like in like the last year. Where she's the opposite, where she's been a survivor main most of all of her hours, and then started mixing in killer later. So it's like I'm listening to somebody who's like had an opposite experience to mine, which is why I like, you know, it's cool to see that we have so much common ground when it comes to a lot of her thoughts. But also it's funny when stuff like that slips in a little bit of the bias of like, yeah, just tunnel everybody if you ain't Dead Hard, forehead. It's like, what? Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I feel like DBD is kind of just coasting on big IPs at this point, and they haven't done anything to the game to make it fun, and I don't even know how the hell long. Like, if I'm being brutally honest, the game is incredibly stale and sucks. Like, it really is kind of it is, like, in terms of, like, good, healthy changes for the game that were mostly liked, nothing's gonna be unanimously liked, but, like, mostly liked. Like, 80-90% of the community is like, hey, that actually helped, and I really liked that. They haven't made any sort of, like, impressive change to the game in years. Years. Like, they keep going, like, there's only so many, like, the game's on a ticking time clock because all they can do to keep players around or introduce new players is, hey, look, Resident Evil Chapter 3, let's go. Or here, we'll do Silent Hill Chapter 2. Here, we're going to introduce aliens, so now you're going to play. You know, like, they just gotta, they're literally only... But, like, exactly, that's what I'm talking about, Taser. It's like, oh, well, the anniversary will be good, right? Like, that's all they have, though. Like, realistically, if we're being brutally honest, all they have is like, hey, look, the anniversary is going to be good, right? Hey, look, brand new shiny IP. Don't look at our degrading player numbers. Don't do that. Look at the shiny new IP, forehead. Yeah, it's just like, they're going to run out of those eventually. I've said this before, but this is going to be cringe to some of you. But, like, literally, like, realistically, if they bring in FNAF, like they actually get FNAF, this game will like live forever. It's good for another 4 or 5 years because that community is, for many of its incredibly awful faults that community has, there's a lot of them, is that they're very devout. They're very devoted as a community. So they would just like squeeze into the player base with us and keep the game afloat for quite a while afterwards. But, like, they don't really have anything else after that. I love Alien. I don't think it's going to save the game. I love Alien a lot. I don't think it's big enough to save the game. FNAF is, like, kind of, like, the only giant license out there that I feel like they could get that would actually bring people into this game in droves. I don't even think a Friday the 13th chapter would actually, like, even help at this point. I really don't. I feel like even bringing Jason in the game wouldn't really matter that much at this point. Even if they found a way to do that. Like, literally, like, once they get FNAF in, if they do get FNAF in, that's, like, kind of like their last big IP that's out there. But then what? There's nothing else. There's no other, like, there's no other giant, like, there's no other, like, giant IP to throw at the wall to distract us, you know? When they actually start running out of those, that's going to be a problem. It's actually going to be a problem. And that's what I feel like DBD will actually start dying. Like, DBD is kind of just, like, stagnating and on a very, like, very subtle decline. But when you actually see Dead by Daylight actually start dying, is when they don't have any cool IPs to throw at the wall anymore. Because they clearly have shown that they, in terms of, like, their game, they don't know what they want it to be. They don't know what they want it to look like in terms of all the changes they made. There's not basically been any changes in like years that like people have looked at with at least like an 80% approval rate on both sides. Once DBD runs out of IPs, that's when the game's actually going to die. It's not going to die because of bad bad chapters or bad balance. It's just when the casual audience doesn't care anymore because there's no cool IPs. So, yeah.